So I'm going to start. I'm going to just do a quick revision of what we did. What we did was that I told you that, and we were specifically focusing on formulas and not equations yet, but formulas mostly. So in this case, what we were doing was that I told you that specifically ionic compounds. Ionic compounds, they look like this. That you have a bunch of positive ions and negative ions, and they're all attached or attracted to each other, and they're very strongly attached to. So the really strong lattices, the big giant ionic lattices. So you can have any number of positive ions, any number of negative ions. They're very huge structures. So it's a positive ion that's attracted to a negative non-metal ion. And what the formula tells you is the ratio in which they exist. It doesn't tell you the actual number like NaCl. It doesn't tell you that there are how many sodium ions or how many Cl ions. What it tells you is it tells you the ratio in which the ions are attracted to each other. But anyways, we have positive and negative ions. That's NaCl is one example. And I told you you can figure out the charges of the ions by looking at the periodic table. Group 1 is +1, group 2 is always +2, group 3 is +3, 5 is -3, 6 is -2, 7 is -1. Okay, is this clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
And what we also did was we did we learned how to write formulas using crisscross method. That aluminium was in group C, so it has a charge of +3. It's always a positive ion attached to a negative ion. So aluminium was +3, and fluorine was in group 7, it was -1. So the crisscross method is that bring the 3 over here and the 1 over here. It's going to be AL1 and F3. You don't have to write 1. Uh, why does the crisscross method work? It tells you the ratio in which the ions would exist because, uh, for example, over here, aluminium is +3, oxygen is in group 6, it's -2. If you do the crisscross, it's going to be 2 aluminium ions and 3 oxygen ions. Why does it work? Because aluminium was losing 3 electrons, oxygen was gaining just 2 electrons, so the number of electrons gained and lost must be made equal. So one way to do that is if you have 2 aluminiums, the total electrons lost are going to be 6. If you have 3 oxygens, the total electrons gained, that would also become 6. And I also told you that after you're done with the crisscross, make sure that the ratio is the simplest whole number ratio. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
And one thing I also told you about was that I told you about this thing that the name of the negative ion, it always changes and ends with "ide" instead of, like, if you have a nitrogen ion, it's going to become nitride. If you have sulfur, it's going to become sulfide, and so on. So I told you about that as well. So we did a bunch of formulas and we learned how to write their formulas. Transition metals, the charge is always written in the formula. So if 10 has a charge of +4, it's going to be written in 4 in Roman. Similarly, if you have iron, which has a charge of +3, so it would be written in Roman in within the formula. So that's what transition metals are. And we did discuss polyatomic ions. I told you that sometimes what would happen is that there's a covalent molecule which might gain or lose electrons to complete its outer shell. So it's not just atoms that form ions, it's also molecules that end up forming ions. So I'm going to do another example. Okay, let me tell you what's happening. So let's try and do another example of a polyatomic ion. You don't need to draw the dot and cross diagrams. You don't need to know what the dot and cross diagrams look like. So for example, let's get rid of the electrons for a second and forget these oxygen sodium ions. So I've got this compound. It's going to be made from carbon and oxygens. So I've got oxygen atoms, Okay, there's an oxygen atom here, there's an oxygen atom here, and there's an oxygen atom over here. Carbon has a total of it has a total of 4 electrons in its outer shell. So that's one over here, and one over here. It has a total of 4 electrons. Oxygen has a total of 6 electrons. So each oxygen atom is going to have a total of. So what's going to happen is carbon needs 4 electrons to complete its outer shell. So it's going to pull one of the oxygens, its electrons, and it's going to pull those 2 electrons towards itself. Now for non-metals, it's always sharing of electrons because the oxygen is not letting go of its electrons. So the oxygen atom, the entire oxygen atom gets dragged towards carbon. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And that's covalent bonding happening. Same thing would happen again. And the oxygen atom, the carbon would pull the electron from the oxygen atom. And over here as well, a similar thing would happen. And the carbon would pull the electrons off the oxygen atom. So carbon gets a complete outer shell. If you count the number of electrons, it got 1 electron over here, 2 electrons, and 1 electron. So that's a total of 8 electrons. So carbon's octet is complete. It was trying to pull electrons from everywhere. It was trying to gain electrons from all the other atoms, and it has now gained those electrons. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है Turhan, is this clear?
Yes.
Amna, Samin, is this clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Achha, so electrons get pulled from all different directions, and carbon is able to gain those electrons. Carbon octet is complete. Oxygen's outer shell is also complete. It has 8 electrons now. The only thing is that this oxygen's outer shell is still not complete. How many electrons does it still need? Like if you count the total electrons around it, how many electrons does it have?
So it has 7. It needs one more to have a full octet.
Okay, it still needs 1 electron. And this one also needs 1 electron. So the problem is that even once the octet is like even if they're trying to form a covalent bond, they're still not able to complete the outer shells. So if there's a sodium atom over here, sodium is in group 1. It's a group 1 metal. It likes to lose electrons. Metals, they always like to lose electrons. It likes to lose exactly 1 electron. And that 1 electron, if it loses that 1 electron, it would form sodium plus 1. And that 1 electron would fly off. And oxygen would be the one that would be able to gain that 1 electron. The same would happen with this oxygen as well. Its octet is not complete. So if there's a sodium that's lying around in group 1, it's plus 1, loses 1 electron, and the oxygen over here is capable of gaining that 1 electron. So now the molecule has like each atom in the molecule has a complete outer shell. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. Hamza, is this clear? Turhan?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Achha, so the thing is that this molecule has now become an ion because it's going to have a charge of -2. Why? Because the molecule, its outer shells were not becoming complete, and now it has gained electrons from outside to complete its outer shell. So this is your carbonate ion. This is what we had discussed last time. No need to remember the dot and cross diagram. No need to draw it as well. This was just to make you understand conceptually that sometimes what happens is that a covalent molecule, even after forming covalent bonds, its outer shells are not complete. But they're able to gain or at times lose electrons to complete the outer shell. ठीक है? Amna, Saneem, is this clear? Yes or no? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
So the thing is that I gave you a list of polyatomic ions and I told you to memorize it. You have to memorize this. You need to know, you don't need to know the dot and cross diagram. What we just did, you don't need to know that. That was just for your understanding. So remember that there are molecules that have ended up gaining or losing electrons, and you have to remember their formulas, their charges, everything. ठीक है आमना. So everything would have to be remembered. And so remember, it's always whenever you make a formula. For example, if you want to make iron 2 sulfate, it's always a positive ion attached to a negative ion. So what is going to be iron 2 sulfate? Uh, this one would be iron is Fe. 2 means that it has a charge of 2 plus. And what is phosphate? Phosphate, you have to remember that phosphate is given over here. So phosphate is given over here, and it has a charge. It is PO4 and it has a charge of -3. So that is what phosphate is. So it's going to be Fe2 plus, and PO4 is going to be -3. Can anyone tell me what the formula is going to be? Like if you do crisscross.
सर Fe3 हम ब्रैकेट में PO4 आएगा और ब्रैकेट के बाहर 2 लिखा होगा.
ठीक है, bring the 3 over here. So this 3 goes over here. So it's going to become Fe3. And there would be PO4 would become twice. There would be 2, so it would be PO4 would become twice. So that is what iron 3 phosphate is. And sorry, this is iron 2 phosphate. Then you've got ammonium sulfate. So what is ammonium sulfate? Ammonium sulfate is, if you have a look, ammonium is this one. It's NH4 plus 1, and sulfate is SO4 minus 2. So ammonium plus 1, SO4 minus 2. So what is the formula? It's going to be ammonium, and SO4 is -2. So if you do crisscross in this case, it's going to become NH4. How many NH4s?
So 2.
Okay, so it's going to be, you put a bracket and 2. And SO4 would just be 1. So you just write SO4. Don't need to add brackets to it or write 1. There's just going to be 1 SO4. Aluminium hydrogen sulfate. Can anyone tell me what aluminium hydrogen sulfate is? I've sent you the board link as well. You can open the board at your end as well. Tell
Sir
me,
Al3.
Al is in group 3, it's 3 plus. What is hydrogen sulfate? It's this one over here.
Yes, sir.
So that's HSO4 minus 1. So what is the formula?
सर Al फिर उसके बाद ब्रैकेट में HSO4 ब्रैकेट के बाहर 3.
Okay, so it's going to be bracket 3. You've got copper 1 phosphate. Copper 1 means that Cu, it means Cu has a charge of +1.
1.
As a phosphide, what is phosphide? Phosphide, again, have a look at the table. It's PO3 with a charge of
3.
-3.
Yes, sir.
So what is going to be the formula?
Cu3 फिर PO3.
PO3, either use bracket and 1. which is not necessary, because even without the brackets, it's still 1. Tin 4 carbonate. What's the formula of tin 4 carbonate? Tin is SN, it's plus 4. What is carbonate?
CO3 minus 2.
Okay, that one is CO3. So that one is CO3 minus 2. And then you've got potassium dichromate. 6. Potassium is K, it's in group 1, it's plus 1. Dichromate 6 is Cr2O7, 2 minus. Actually, this one, first thing. What would be the formula of this?
SN2 bracket में CO3 bracket you have 4.
So can this be simplified further?
Yes, sir.
So what would you get in that
Sub
case?
SN and then CO3 ब्रैकेट के बाहर 2. सर वो वाला भी हो सकता है ना, CO3 PO3 वाला.
No. Remember, you can't change the formula of the polyatomic ion. This was actually CO3 and PO3 was 1. Do you get my point?
Okay, sir.
But
Okay.
the ratio of the ions was 3:1, not 3:3.
अच्छा, okay.
Okay. So remember this polyatomic ion, you can't change the formula of the polyatomic ion. Okay, you can't make it PO2 or you can't make it PO1, so you don't touch the polyatomic ion. As I so you have all of these to keep. So if you know what the list is, tell me what's the formula of calcium and what's the formula of calcium phosphate?
CA
Need is Ca. What's the charge in Ca? And what is phosphate?
plus 2 and phosphate PO4 minus 3.
So phosphate is PO4. So what's the formula?
CA3 and then bracket starts with PO4, bracket ends, and then 2.
Then 2. So try, and I've sent you the board link. Remember, this is extremely important as this one. So if I've sent you the board link, try, and this is like a small test. You have the I'll send you the snapshot of the polyatomic ions. Let me. So I'll send you the snapshot of the polyatomic ions.
Okay, sir.
Now try and now try and solve these questions. So you've got and open the pure table somewhere and find these. So cesium carbonate, that's 1. Send me all the formulas on WhatsApp. So you've got cesium phosphate, cesium nitride, then number 4 is you've got magnesium sulfide. You've got strontium phosphide. Hamza, are you doing this? Turhan? Sorry, everyone
Yes, sir.
attempting this. That's a strontium nitrate. So these are your questions. Try and do these questions right now. Okay, I've sent you the board link. Open the board link as well. The table is given. I've posted the table as well. Send the formulas right now. I'll add a transition metal as well. Just a second. So all of this, you've got 16 minutes. Try and as quickly as possible send me the formulas.
Okay, sir.
और इसी पे connected रहो, ठीक है? Leave when you're done.
Sir, what's the formula for nitride?
Which one? This one?
Yes, sir.
As I told
Sir,
you,
it's not in the list.
ठीक है, it's just 1 second. I told you about this one. Okay, that's definitely not in the list. I told you about IDEs. Where did I tell you? Somewhere over here. I told you when it's an IDE, then it's just the element, nothing else.
Okay, sir.
Sir, in part 4, is that magnesium sulfite?
Yes, that's sulfide, ITE.
All right, okay, thank you, sir.
I mean this part. अच्छा, did anyone complete?
जी सर, मैंने अभी भेज दिया व्हाट्सएप पर।
ठीक है, just 1 second. अच्छा, so you're getting नहीं, बाकी सब तो ठीक है. What happened to नहीं, where did I have aluminium नहीं.
सर वो आपने कल होमवर्क दिया था ना, उसका है लास्ट वाला है, थर्ड वाला,
अच्छा, ठीक
ठीक है
है.
आपने।
अच्छा, वो पिछला था. ठीक है, ठीक है. अच्छा, this one magnesium sulfate. अच्छा, remember इसमें एक magnesium sulfate, make sure it's the simplest ratio. तो
ओके सर।
aluminium sulfite है. aluminium sulfite को दोबारा कर लो. Sulfite,
ओके सर।
क्योंकि it's not sulfate, it's sulfite.
ओके सर।
नहीं, let me check. Aluminium क्या था? Where's aluminium? There is no aluminium.
सर 7
So the seventh one.
अच्छा, this one. ठीक है, this is aluminium sulfite.
सर मैं लास्ट वाला नहीं किया, वो कर लेता हूँ।
ठीक है.
Sir, I sent you the pictures.
ठीक है, 1 second. Strontium phosphide is fine. ठीक है, they all look all good, I think. I just wanted to make sure that you could differentiate between an ide and an 8. As Afan, there's one more mistake, which is, okay,
यस सर।
what is nitride?
नाइट्राइड NO2 -1।
नहीं, remember this, okay, if अगर वो end में ना there is an ide,
ओह यस सर।
ठीक है, I told you that's just that simply means nitrogen. So that just means cesium and nitrogen. Cesium is +1, group 1, nitrogen is group 5, so that's -3. So that's it. And similarly, you have
सर क्रोमियम, अच्छा
so you have there was another ide as well. But Mariam, I think you made a there's a phosphide as well. Phosphide is just phosphorus. ठीक है, ये तो कर लो. अच्छा, बाकी is there anyone else completed this? Minal Nosheva? Turan? Amna, you can leave if you're done. And can you send the previous if you're done with the previous homework as well?
All right, sir, I'll send that as well. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Hamza, are you done?
Yes, I'm saying it here.
क्या सिचुएशन है?
So should I leave?
ठीक है हाँ you're done ठीक है
Okay, Allah Hafiz. Hafiz. Thank you, sir.
okay
I sent it to you, sir.
just 1 second let me check ठीक है strontium phosphide looks good mg magnesium sulfate looks right as well I said the only problem was I didn't give you magnesium sulfate I gave you magnesium sulfite but sulfate is fine ठीक है
Okay, sir.
नहीं और किधर है I just got 2 अच्छा नहीं वो ऊपर है अच्छा cesium nitride cesium phosphate we had cesium phosphate right ठीक है that's fine cesium carbonate is also fine but nitride why are there 2 N's in nitride or is that just a mistake
So it's an accident.
अच्छा otherwise
It's off.
अच्छा you've done till 5
No, sir. I sent you 2 more pictures afterwards. I sent 2 more pictures, sir.
ठीक है I didn't yeah I got them now ठीक है just 1 second अच्छा then you've got aluminium sulfite strontium nitride that's fine ammonium phosphate looks fine as well ठीक है what about chromium 3 carbonate so that's ठीक है that's fine as well ठीक है all good
Okay, sir.
चलो ठीक है let's बाकी जो है ना please send me your work ठीक है on WhatsApp so I can have a look ये फिर यहाँ से disconnect कर रहे हैं ठीक है just make sure you memorize these the entire list of ions ठीक है you memorize this ठीक है चलिए okay then take care
Rough, sir.
Allah Hafiz